Good morning, good morning. For those of you who just started entering now. I was just going live on YouTube really quick. What's up, Tiffany? All right, y'all. Good morning. I know people are going to start coming in little by little, as always, but we'll start going. There's quite a bit of news today. Hope you all had a great weekend. Today I leave to the NAREB conference for pretty much the week. So that should be exciting. I know I told you guys about trying to go to the NAREB conference. So if you're in this call and you're going to be going, I hope I'll be seeing you there. If not, you guys should consider going to either Midwinter or National Conference. I tell you all the time. You'll once you go, you'll understand what the mission is, especially in South Florida. It gets a little bit convoluted down here, but you start to see what the problems that everybody's going through nationwide. But we're going to jump into the news for the week. So PCE, personal consumption expenditure, came in last week showing headline inflation rose 0.1% from May to June, but declined year over year from 2.6% to 2.5%. Core PCE rose 0.2% monthly, and it stayed the same year over year at 2.6%. In my opinion, had core taken a bit of a dive lower, we could have seen the Fed consider a rate move during their meeting this week. But since it stayed the same, that September meeting seems to be the meeting we will most likely see them start cutting rates, unless inflation stays stagnant from now until then. So the only way I really don't see them cutting rates is if inflation gets worse or pretty much stays the same from now till their September meeting. PCE is the number that they look at. For those of you who don't know, because I know we talk about CPI and PPI. So CPI is Consumer Price Index, PPI is Producer Price Index. Those two, Consumer Price Index measures inflation on the consumer level. Producer Price Index measures inflation on the wholesale level. But the the price index, CPI and PPI, they measure the change in prices month over month. PCE, personal consumption expenditure, actually measures what people are spending month over month. So an apple can cost $1 last month and $2 this month. Doesn't mean that people now, because of that difference in pricing, are now starting to buy that same apple. So that's the difference between CPI and PCE. That's why the PCE number is the most important for the Fed, because it's showing what people are actually spending month over month, or what their consumption expenditure is. Existing home sales for June show a decline of 5.4% month over month and a 5.4% negative year over year. Existing home sales are basically homes that are already built out. They're not new construction homes with developers, right? These are sellers that are listing their homes to sell their properties. And that number shows a 5.4% negative year over year. The data for this year continues to show how much worse this year has been compared to last year, unfortunately. Inventory for existing homes is also up to 1.32 million, which is about a 4.1 month supply of inventory. Even though the numbers do look weak, demand is still there. Average days on market is at 22 as opposed to 24 last month. So way lower than that 30-day mark, which is basically 30 days is a month, right? So new home sales are also taking a beating this year. They're down 7.4% from last year, but that number seems to be heavily skewed, with the Northeast showing a sharp decline of 64% year over year. So it looks like on the Northeast, the building has probably stopped completely over there, and their home sales are down a lot from this time last year, at least their new construction homes. They're currently around 400. Can you hear me? Am I coming in and out? Am I good? Thumbs up?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right, perfect. All righty. Yeah, it might just be you, Dr. Carla. There are currently around 476,000 new homes for sale, but really only 102,000 of those are completed. So another thing as well, when you hear people talking about there's too much inventory in the market, If you were to take that new home, those new homes that are for sale, those construction homes at 476,000, that would put about a 9 month supply out in the market. However, only 102 of those 102,000 of those are actually completed, which puts our supply at about a month and a half, 2 months. Purchase applications fell 4% last week, and they're down 15% year over year, and refinances are still up 38% year over year. Average rates fell as well, and they're at about 6.82%. Now, online, there's a lot of negative info on real estate, and that's normal since it's one of the biggest drivers of the economy. And compared to the last few years, it hasn't been great, right? This year has been worse than last year. Last year was one of the worst on record. However, I'm going to compare some numbers from to 2011 and 2012 data where the market was starting to recover from that '08 crisis. In 2011, 23.1% of homes were underwater, basically had negative equity. In 2024, that number is 1.8%. Okay, so there's really very few homes that are actually negative equity right now in this market because we haven't seen home prices actually dip at any point. Average days on market, we spoke about this already, but in 2011 it was at 100. It was at 100 days, and there were over 3 million active listings at any given moment that year. Mid-July in 2011, basically like same time this year, mid to late July in 2011, showed 396,955 homes hit the market. This year, 70,606. What is tough is that last year was a steep drop off, of course, from the previous 2 years, and this year does seem to be even worse. And like I have told you before, in terms of mortgage originations, last year was the worst one on record, with this year shaping to take its place, unfortunately. Even though coming into this year, we thought that we were going to have a 20% increase. We're actually right now at about a 15 to 20% decrease. We're seeing a tightening, but in no way are we seeing a housing crash. The only way that that could possibly happen, and I don't think it will, is if the U.S. were to default on their debt because they can't keep up with the payments, pretty much. And if they were to default on their debt, then we're all SOL, unfortunately. Rates go up, US Treasury goes up, everything goes up, people lose a lot of jobs, and we probably end up in a world war at that time. So that's a slight possibility that I don't think could happen. But we do have a lot of debt compared to our GDP. Hometown Heroes has $43 million left, and we haven't even finished July. So while nationally the market is softening, Florida has been a different animal. We're only down about 2.2% in home sales as a state this year. Okay. Now, lastly, I have a new program coming out very soon. It is 100% financing FHA only. So very similar to Chenoa Fund, except without the rate being so elevated. So for those of you who don't know, or for those of you that do know, I do not like Chenoa Fund. Chenoa Fund is a 100% financing program where they give you 3.5% down payment. However, the rate that client takes is usually 1.5% to 2% higher than what the market is, on top of having to repay the second mortgage as well. Ends up not being a net benefit for them. And usually after all the costs and everything that come with that program, that 3.5% down payment assistance actually ends up being 1.5% or 2%. In this case, the new program that I have is very similar to Chenoa Fund, where it's giving you 3.5%, but the market, it's going to still be whatever that market rate is on that FHA loan. There is no income or purchase price requirements. And as well, the minimum FICO is 600. The caveat is that second mortgage will have to be repaid monthly payments. It's usually about 2% more than what the note rate is. So for instance, if the market rate for today on an FHA is, let's say, 6.5, that means that they would be paying 8.5% on that 3.5% that they borrow for that down payment assistance. Obviously people don't want to get down payment assistance and repay it, but this is something that's flexible for people that are over the income limits for most of the down payment assistance programs, especially consider that Hometown Heroes may be out of here in about a month and a half, or even less. Gives them that option, as well as the fact of our buyers agents in the room right now, not being sure if they're able to get their commission, right? So ultimately, utilizing this program and leveraging it gives the buyer that amount to be able to pay you if needed, right? Because they're getting all of their down payment covered, even if they have the money for it. So it's a good leverage for you as well as a buyer's agent to say, hey, I can help you once you do your consultation, right? I can help you. Here's my buyer's brokerage agreement. Obviously, you let them know what that means. If we're going to most likely try to get it from the seller, but if not, this is what I charge. However, my lender is going to be able to help you. He's only one of the few ones in the market to have this program, 100% financing. So you're going to be able to save some money at closing no matter what, right? And now you're just leveraging yourself and putting yourself in that position with that client. Like if I don't go with Sierra or Anthony or Maria or Dr. Carla, that I won't be able to get this program, right? And just kind of wiring it that way and pushing it that way is another option for you. And it also doesn't run out of money too. Were there some questions here in the chat? The underwater stats. So in 2011, the amount of homes that were underwater was a large number, wasn't it? Let me see here. 23.1%. So in 2011, 23.1% of homes were underwater. Basically had negative equity. In 2024, it is 1.8%. Okay, those are the amount of homes or loans that are underwater right now in the market. So people are refinancing. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. We see the stats. Obviously, I'm pretty sure you guys that are aware that read a lot can see the amount of credit card debt that we have. Stats wise, I see it every single day when I'm running credit, when I'm pulling credit, the amount of money that we're over leveraged on credit card debt. And I think that will, soon roll over and into a credit crisis with credit cards. And that could be within the next few months or year or so while people continue to be over leveraged, unless like how they're doing now, 38% of applications right now refinance applications are up 38% right now, leveraging their property to pay off all that high APR debt, including their credit cards and their car payments, and only focusing on their mortgage. That's going to be a way for people to try to stay safe because they have a lot of equity, but they also are over leveraged. And if you start a bankruptcy process with your credit cards, you won't be able to do any sort of refinancing in the future. So before they get caught up, they need to make sure that they speak to somebody, whether that be a realtor or loan officer, to start trying to get into that refinance process, even if it's as a HELOC or HELoan or an outright cash out. What's up? Alicia? What day are you leaving?
Wednesday morning.
Nice. I will see you there. I leave tonight at 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions, any scenarios that they went through last week in regards to any sort of programs, anything like that? Nope. Before I let you guys.
Hey, I have a question, Mike. So the 100% financing, can someone use that on a 4-unit building?
Yes. Yes, Tiffany, we'll talk. Yeah.
So can we use it on an investment property?
No, it's FHA only. So that means primary residence only. Yeah, it's a FHA only product, very similar, like I said, to Chinol Fund. The only difference is that person's going to have market rate, and they will have to repay the second monthly payments, usually 2% more than what the rate on the first one is. So 6.5 is the first, let's say. The second is at 8.5, but they're only paying 8.5 on the 3.5% that they borrow. So that's maybe like $14,000-$15,000. Very, very similar to somebody trying to take out a personal loan, right? Their personal loan right now, their APRs may be at 11, 12. If they don't have great credit, could be at 16. They have good credit, then maybe at 11 or 12. Very similar, but it's a 10-year. It's a 10-year term.
So can they pay it back early? I'm sorry if that was a dumb question, but I've never, just curious. Can they pay it back early? Like if they get a large chunk of money, they can just put it towards that second mortgage?
They can utilize it. Right, they can pay that second mortgage down whenever. Was that 2% down year over year for purchases in Florida? Yes. That's Florida stats specifically, all over the state. We're only down 2.2% in closed sales in general, so that's all sales. I think the
No,
number
the question was more, is that a year over year stat?
yes, it is year over year.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Q2 year over year, so that was from April to April, May, June through June. Shanice said, so like a piggyback loan? Yes, pretty much like a piggyback loan. A lot of down payment assistance programs are piggybacks right now, including Hometown Heroes, Florida Bond, even Broward County, Miami-Dade. You're taking on a second mortgage. Miami-Dade has ones that you don't make monthly payments on. They also have ones that you do through PHCD. Broward County, you don't make payments on it, but it is a second mortgage piggyback. So it just depends. So what is the required credit score for a HELOC? 680. Usually 680, 660 you could try to get away with, but you need a low loan to value, a lot of equity. So at 660, you may have to be like at 70% loan to value, maybe 75. 680, you're able to do it up to, I believe, 90% without a problem. So it just depends on your credit score. And it depends on, in terms of like trying to take out money from your property, HELOC, HELoan, or cash out really just depends on the situation, your situation or the client situation, what they want to use the money for, what their current rate is, if they have any, if they have a lot of high debt. Because if you have a 3% rate on the first mortgage, right? You might say automatically, I want to do a HELOC, because I don't want to mess with my first mortgage. But then you're trying to take a HELOC for $200,000 at 10, 11% interest only, right? Your payment with your 10, 11% interest only plus your 3% could end up being much greater than just doing a cash out refinance for everything because of what we call your blended rate. So it really just depends on the situation for the client, what they're trying to use the money for, how much they're trying to take out as well, different things like that. Okay. That's it. But right before you guys go, I almost forgot. So sometimes clients, I'm getting a lot right now from clients that don't want to do Hometown Heroes. Look, I tell them all the time, that's better for me. The lender's going to make more money doing a regular loan. I get paid more doing a regular loan, but it doesn't make sense for you to not do Hometown Heroes even if you have the money. Okay. So when you have, right, you don't want to pay back the second mortgage. You have, let's say the client has 5% already saved, right? That's what they were focusing on. They wanted to do 5% down. And they had the down payment and the closing costs. They got about $40,000. Great. If you qualify for a conventional loan, the more that you go up in down payment amount, the less your mortgage insurance is, not only because it's based off of a percentage of the loan, but also because it's based off of your loan to value. So instead of doing 5% down, client should do 10% down, leverage 5% from Hometown Heroes. They're coming in with the same 5% that they wanted to come in anyway with. They have the same amount of equity that they wanted, but Hometown Heroes protects you from a lot of closing costs, right? If there's any points on that within the market that day, depending on the rate that the client wants to get, right? If you're doing a regular conventional loan, you're going to get hit for those points, even if it's 0.5% or 1%. That's extra closing cost for you, as well as the transfer taxes. So Hometown Heroes or Florida Housing in general, right? They don't require the buyer to pay the transfer taxes on the mortgage that they're getting on, which is usually anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000 in closing costs. So it just makes sense in this market to leverage that until we start to see more liquidity come back into rates where a rate could be at 6.5 or 6.75, no points. Then it'll make sense to do a regular loan at that point. But your clients know they can leverage it. Even if they have the money, leveraging it is great, because if they have the 10%, doing 15, so on and so forth. So just want to leave you guys with that, because I think it was like 2 conversations last week that I had to explain that to clients as well. All right, y'all. Have a great week. If you guys need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. You guys have our information. I did put a link in the chat. That is Nicolette White. She did her second video for American Dream Network. She's the first one on this episode. So if you want to copy it, save it, watch it later. Nicolette White, my co-host for the podcast and local realtor in South Florida, NAREB member, YRD member. But thank you guys. See you next Monday.
Thank you, Mike.
No problem.